Welcome to Beyond Sunday, the King of Kings podcast, where we dive a little bit deeper into our weekly message and see what we're taking beyond Sunday. My name is Dina Newsom, and today I have some, how should I describe you guys today? You kind of pressure me about the adjectives that I use sometimes, Peter.
Oh, dude.
I have two guys. How about that? Just two guys.
Wow. I don't know that we said don't use adjectives. I think that was like kind of nice. You know, you called us in the past amazing, incredible,
wonderful, spectacular. How about today is spectacular? I have some spectacular guests. Don't skip today's podcast because the guests are spectacular. So don't skip this series.
Yeah, but if they're already listening, they didn't skip it.
Maybe once they found out who the guests were, they were going to turn it off.
Oh, just don't say our names.
Yeah, let's go covert. I'm not Peter Bay.
And I'm Charles McMuffin.
Do you know the Muffin Man?
I do. I am the McMuffin Man. Let's talk about Jesus.
Okay. So, Zach and Peter are here today with me, and my little open. Yep, I did. I spoiled it. My opening question for you: summer has like really hit. I feel like now we're in the thick of it. So my question is: what summer activity do you have to do every summer, or what's like your favorite thing about summer that you get to do?
Golf. Yeah,
it's not just summer for you.
No, it's
though.
not just summer, but like. It's the activity, and I've been doing more golf watching than golf playing, which is fun. My youngest son, Brady's in a lot of tournaments, and so that's been fun to watch him. But yeah, our summers are very much revolved outside of work around golf.
Yeah, and I would say one of my favorite summer activities is to go to the pool, but don't get in the pool.
Do you do this often?
Almost every time.
My parents have a pool, and obviously Peter, for those who don't know, is my brother-in-law. So we get invited sometimes to the same party. And I don't know that I've seen you in the pool. Maybe once.
Like last summer, I got in 0 times. It was like a goal to never get in the pool.
And your kids love it.
Oh, they love it.
And your wife loves to tread water for as long as she can.
Yeah, I can't even
That's
float.
My sister, by the way. Yeah.
You can't even float?
For those who don't know how
like
in-law
for
stuff
real?
works.
Yeah, for real. I've tried to float. I just sink to the bottom.
Well, you're tall. I'm pretty sure you could stand.
Well, yeah, depends how deep. But
I don't.
Well,
think
beyond Sunday,
drown.
you talked about diving deep. So
yeah,
we're not going shallow here. Mm-hmm. This is deep waters, baby.
Yeah, it's not diving though. It's just sinking.
Do you have an
Sinking
aversion to the
Sunday's
water,
message.
or just?
If I had,
do you enjoy going
to the pool?
Yeah,
I would choose to never go to the pool.
Okay.
But we're invited often, and I am humbled and honored by each invite, and so I go. But if
that was nice. That was nice for the in-laws. Yeah.
If I could like go to a movie every time instead, I'd be pleased as punch.
Oh, okay.
And it's not even against the heat. I think it's because I don't know how to swim. I don't love getting splashed. I don't drink much of the elk. So it's like, what am I going to do here? Just sit in the warm and sweat.
You could sit in the cool water. You don't have to swim. You don't have to you could just sit.
Yeah, and then the kids are all like splashing you in the face. Do you like that, Dina?
Turn around.
Wow, that's aggressive.
I love floating in the pool.
Turn around.
I love floating in the pool. I love to.
Is that your summer activity, or what are you choosing?
No, that's not, because I think for me in the summer, I don't want to miss like a big movie release. That's like I look forward to, and COVID kind of threw us off for a while. There was some weak summer movies, but I'm a big movie buff. It's funny you mentioned going to movies, because there's always good movies that come out in the summer.
What is it? What are you going to see?
This year? Oh, there's several.
Well, tell us.
I'm excited about. I don't know. I went to see How to Train a Dragon, the live version. I was really excited about that. It was good.
1 to 10 scale.
I'd say maybe a 7.
Okay.
Yeah, which is pretty positive for me.
Are you going to see Jurassic Park?
I am going to see Jurassic Park.
Happy Gilmore.
I'm not going to see Happy Gilmore in the theater.
It's coming.
I don't think it's going to theaters. I think it's going right to Netflix.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Happy Gilmore 2 not in the theaters?
I think.
I'm blaming that one on COVID.
I don't know. COVID threw the whole movie thing off. Like just movies weren't coming out forever because people weren't going. And I love a good movie, some popcorn, kicking back. Yeah.
Yes. Do you sneak things into the movie theater?
I used to, but I don't anymore.
Ooh, tell us about the metanoia, the heart change, repentance.
It's really because I just stopped eating candy during movies.
It doesn't have to be candy.
Anything. Like I don't sneak drinks in. Most of the time I do drink soda sometimes during the movie. So I was going to say most of the time I drink waters. It depends on what theater I go to. Because my son works at a movie theater.
Which one?
At the Alamo Draft House.
Nice.
And that one's close to my house. And I really enjoy the vibe there. I like going there. But it doesn't have reclining seats.
Wow.
And there's something to be said for the reclining seats.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
That were non-existent when I was young. So,
Zach, you sneak things in. I know
I've snuck some things in before.
I know your mom has talked about this several times.
Yeah, I've snuck some things in before. Yeah.
Yeah. And anything you want to share? What's
like candies?
You're acting so strange about this.
My best friend.
What else do you sneak? I'm not like bringing in a drink like in my pocket.
No, not drinks. But
do you like take a blanket to the movie? You know that's like a thing
Kids
now
do.
with the
Kids
recliners.
do.
Don't, but that would be easier to sneak things if you did that.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not condoning that, or are we?
No,
bringing a
stealing.
blanket.
We
Blanket's
talked about
fine.
honor.
No,
we just learned all about honor for a month.
Bringing a snack in. Yeah. Yeah, this is perfect for the later question.
Yeah.
So I'll save it.
My very good friend, like my mom friend, when my kids were little, that we'd take our kids to the movies together. She and her kids would always go stop by Dollar Tree or the dollar store before they'd go to the movies. And she literally would buy so much boxed candy that when she walked, her purse would go.
So I will share this. When I was in high school, probably college, I didn't do this much in college, but in high school for sure.
I know.
I'd go to the movie. I'd go straight to a trash can, get a large popcorn tub, large soda cup, go get that refill.
Refill it. Oh.
Would you wash it out first?
It depends who I was with. Like if it really bothered them, I'd rinse it and put a little soap in there, rinse it out.
In like the bathroom?
Yeah. But if it was my buddies or whatever, just dump and go get it.
Yeah.
Just save what?
$20
15, 20 bones.
Yeah.
Did you ever do like theater hopping before there was assigned seating?
Yes.
Where you'd get in and like one movie would finish and you'd just go sit in another theater?
We absolutely did. We'd watch 3 in a day.
My older brothers would do that.
Yeah.
Never would I do that.
No,
ever.
You wouldn't.
I have honor.
I don't know that yeah, it's just a lot of movies time to watch back and forth.
Yeah.
Back to back.
And you run out of candies.
Yeah, and you run out of candies that you might have brought.
That depends how many you smuggled in. Alrighty then.
Yep. Good movie quote.
So this week we started our new sermon series called Hey, Don't Skip This. And we are talking about Bible events that maybe are not as well known or, harder to find, not the things that you hear every week. And this week we kind of looked at 2 Kings, and Pastor Greg Griffith preached. And he opened up by talking about how he is a hypocrite. He doesn't like to admit it, but he's a hypocrite because he has very high standards about people losing things and judges them fiercely. But that he lost his wedding ring multiple times, so he ended up getting a tattoo instead of wearing a ring. So I want to know, what are you a hypocrite about? Is there something in your life that
I'd like to answer for Peter?
Yes.
All
this
right.
This is something that he says that I don't see in action, which is, I think, what a hypocrite is, right? It's saying one thing and not doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so many, many times Peter will say that he is
pro-animal.
I knew it. Yeah. Pro-animal.
Anti-pet.
Anti-pet.
Yep.
And what he means to say by that is that he's for animals. That's what pro-animal means.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't want to have one as a pet. And yet, I have a pet. His name's Ziggy. And many other animals have been around Peter. And I don't think he's pro-animal. I think he's anti-animal, even more anti-pet. So I'm going to call him out as a hypocrite for that.
What kind of animal is Ziggy?
He's just a little cockapoo dog.
He's a dog. Okay.
And again, I don't care. Like if animals aren't your thing, that's fine. I would just say own it.
Yeah.
You know?
I do agree. I think you may be a little anti-animal, anti-pet, only because of the faces you make anytime there's animal discussions happening.
So here's the deal. I'm afraid of most every animal. My judge of if I'm afraid or not is if it was cornered in the garage, would I run away? And I can't think of an animal that I wouldn't run away from.
You'd run away from Ziggy?
Absolutely. If it's cornered and like, I'm done. I'm gone. So I'm afraid of animals.
What about like an axolotl?
Yeah, that's not even a real animal.
No, I don't know what that is.
That's a Pokemon.
Animal. No.
That's not real. So when I go to the zoo, I just am in awe of God's creation. And I mean, that's true. But like, it's just so fun to learn about animals. Did you know that giraffes have like sponges in their neck so that if they have to eat from foliage on the ground, their head doesn't explode from the rush of blood?
Wow. Incredible.
Right? If they didn't have those, they would have died off years ago. So it disproves evolution. Yeah. I think that's phenomenal. I love animals. Don't want them in my house.
Maybe you're just fascinated by animals. Maybe love is not the right word.
So what's the opposite of pro? Anti. So, Zach, would you say I'm anti-animal?
Yeah, I would. I would.
He feels very strongly.
And I think it's one thing to be, like, you can be afraid of animals.
True.
Which I think makes you a little bit anti.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
Usually you're anti things you're afraid of.
You're not like anti, like you want to go around and like kill things and you're wishing bad things happen. You just don't want them in your space.
So true.
At all, ever.
Mm. You know what? This is a great example. I love
Peter.
this.
What do you got for me?
Yeah, I think
this is some good brother therapy.
This is really good. I think it's so funny so Zach took a test like a while ago, or no, what was it? Your family said you're a bad listener.
Yeah, they voted me the worst in my family at
listening or active listening, or what was it? Yeah. The context.
Yeah, I think just listening in general. Yeah,
which this is not the time to get into who may actually be the worst listener, but I don't even know if I can bend this to him being hypocritical or not, but. He's always like, he'll talk over people to say how good he's gotten at listening over the years. And they'll be like, no, Zach, you don't. And then he'll be like, you don't understand. And then he'll just not listen his way all through his argument. So
I didn't hear a thing you said.
Yep.
Dina, what do you got?
I think I'm probably the most hypocritical about like organization. Like I want things organized my way, but everyone else has to organize them my way too. And I'll say to my kids or like former roommates or something, oh no, do whatever you want. But then I'll secretly like reshape or reorganize or things because it just, I don't know if I've got like OCD tendencies or something, but it just drives me nuts.
In the words of Forrest Frank, your way is better.
Yep. My way is better.
Yeah.
God's way is best, but
Then Dina.
I'm like right there underneath.
Nice.
No. All right. So kind of talking about being hypocritical. Are you guys ever hypocritical like when you borrow things? That Greg like left in this Bible story talks about this axe that is borrowed that falls in the water, and they're really devastated or concerned about this axe because it's not theirs, and we want to take care of other people's things. And I'm just wondering, are you ever, do you ever find yourself being hypocritical about borrowing things, or do you have what relates to you about borrowing?
Yeah, this is where I'm not quite sure that I struggle, one, with understanding what hypocritical meant, so now I have to relate it to something else. So this is a double whammy.
Double whammy.
The wheels are spinning.
So I do know this, that I am not great with things I borrow. I tend to have them for a long time. I've got a couple books from one of my buddies right now, and I don't even like to read. So it's like, why do I still have these?
Did you ask for them or did they offer?
He gave them to me. It was like, you should read these. So I didn't want to turn down the gift of borrowing something, but I keep looking at them and I just feel so bad. Like, oh, I'm never going to read this book, and I keep looking on Audible thinking today's the day it's going to be on Audible. And they don't come to Audible. Like one of them he wrote. So I will have to read it.
Is it Zach?
No. It's a good buddy of mine named Frank. And Frank, I love you. And I just want to be able to, I can read, but not well. So now I'm going to, and then I'm like, I'll get after it. I'll do it. I won't. I don't know when I will.
Maybe you should just give the books back and be grateful.
That's what Frank would say. He's a very understanding guy.
Yeah.
So
that's my encouragement to you.
I'll read a chapter.
I don't know. I don't think me or Allison are much of like borrowers.
Yeah.
So for me, I probably what's more in my world than borrowing is like if we go out with friends or someone else, like just kind of trying to make sure we don't take advantage. If they want to pay for something, like cool, then we'll get the next one. If that makes sense. So I think we're way more in that camp than like, hey, I need to borrow anything. To me, I think we're really try to be hyper aware of not taking for granted when people are generous to us and wanting to make sure that we see it, we notice it, and if we can in our own way, it doesn't always have to be penny for penny or just with dollars, if that makes sense. But it can be with watching someone's dog or with, whatever. I think we try to be over and above, like we want to be the ones that are generous, if that makes sense. Yeah. Are you much of a borrower?
I'm not a big borrower, but when I borrow something like from a neighbor or a coworker, somebody I don't know as well, like I will use it, clean the snot out of it and get it back to them ASAP. Like I want it looking better. But if I borrow something from somebody I know well or like a family member, all bets are off on when it may or may not leave my house again. And sometimes like there's things I've quote unquote borrowed from my dad that I'm pretty sure I really just think it was a gift now. And it just became I have a snowblower.
There you go. Dad
lives at
Dina's
my house
dad, hopefully
now.
You're not listening because she still knows that was a borrow, but she's kind of claimed it.
Well, somewhere in the midst, he moved to a condo where they take care of his snow. So I figured he didn't need it anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like I take advantage. I feel like I'm hypocritical in that way. That I don't treat those things the same when they're from people I know better. I should be better. I should honor them more.
There you go.
Yeah. So Greg really talked about 3 key points as he looked at this whole story. And the first one that he talked about is God cares about what you care about. How did that speak to you guys? How did you relate to that?
Yeah. This is something that I've thought about a lot. And in kids ministry, this was a great connection often because what kids care about is very different than what adults care about at times. And a kid who loses their stuffy, like that's a big deal to them. And I think sometimes we think of God as this benevolent authority who is there to punish rather than a loving father who is there to care. And if you see a child sad, you want to help them find their stuffy. Let's go find it. And so that was always a fun connection to make with kids, like that God cares about you. And because he cares about you, he cares about what you care about, even if other people belittle it.
Yeah, I think it was really good. It was in relation to, the story where the guy does borrow the axe head. And he's a protege of Elisha, the prophet, who in my mind is the most underrated prophet of all. Elisha's a awesome dude, just amazing guy. So he's got all these proteges under him, and they're like really building like a version of a seminary, right? And so they're doing this. The axe head flies out. It goes into the water. And the guy that borrowed the axe head's like, geez, doggone it. I lost my axe head. I borrowed that. That's going to be a big deal. And it probably would have been a bigger deal than maybe we make it out to be. And God this was my kind of big takeaway too for the whole sermon, like God in his bigness cares about the small things in our life, right? I just think it's fascinating that the God of the world, who at this moment right now is seated on his throne and probably stewarding, I don't know, millions of people talking to him at this very moment, can at the same time steward the world and be sovereign over all, and yet still be intimately and deeply involved in the details of my life for what should be in his purview a really small thing. He makes it a big enough thing in our life to care about. So I just find that to be fascinating. And that was kind of like the perspective I had through the sermon, was thinking about this duality of God, that he is that big and that small. And that's our God, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so for anyone listening that's like feeling the weight of something, whether it's small or big, knowing that God is seated on his throne and at the same time like deeply involved and intimate with you to give you exactly what you need when you need it, is really comforting.
When I was going through my divorce and I was in counseling at the time, I felt like there were things that were happening in my life that were not big enough for God. Like, oh, this was really small, because I was going through some really big things with my divorce and my children and those struggles. And then little things would happen and I'd be like, well, that's too small to pray about. Or that's like, I want God to concentrate on the big things. He can concentrate on it all. But it just seemed so minuscule to me. And my therapist gave me the image of God doesn't look at your problems or your issues like a skyline where there's tall buildings and short buildings. He's got an overhead view where everything looks the same dimension. So your big cares and your small cares are all the same to him. And he cares just as much about the teeny tiny thing as he does about the big thing. And that was like mind blowing to me. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I hear a lot of people say or feel like, well, I don't know if I want to pray to God about that because so-and-so is dealing with that. And that's a big deal. Like God should, like that's a bigger thing. And like, maybe it is in the worldly context, but God cares enough about what you're going through too, that you can bring anything and everything, even the small things and the big things, to God.
Yeah. I liked Greg referenced a quote that said, there's no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still. And that spoke to me. I really liked that. So he kind of transitioned into his second point, which was talking about God can work miracles in everyday life. How did that speak to you?
I think what I really liked about this part of Greg's message, we call him GG. What I liked about GG's message here in this part was just the reminder that every day we're a walking you, Dina, Peter, we're walking miracles, and to notice a little bit more of the miracles that we just get to see every day and take for granted, get to feel, get to experience every day and take for granted. And again, kind of pointing to the bigness of God, like all these miracles happen in each and every day, and he's aware, he knows. And because of that, like we ought to believe in the miraculous God to do anything and everything. And so no situation is too far gone. Like you said, no pit is too far deep that God can't intervene.
Yeah, and I liked how he connected also some of the miracles we get to see at church, of communion, of the forgiveness of sins through Christ's body and blood in the real presence of the bread and the wine, and which is something I think that when we do it every other week and it can become even mundane, but the reality is like there's a miracle at work. We receive the forgiveness of sins. And then in baptism, July 20 is a baptism Sunday. So come ready to see the miracle of God, of him saying, you are part of my family. Nothing and no one can take you from me. As the water and the word combines, and like one of the coolest things that we get to witness and be part of. So I really appreciate him bringing those sacraments into the message in that moment.
And you heard it here first, folks. Believe it or not, Dina and Peter, I believe that July 20th is the first Sunday where we will have baptisms happening at all 3 of our campuses on the same day.
Yeah.
Talk about miraculous. Come on.
Yep.
Let's go.
It's great. Yeah. I liked when he talked at this point about Jesus coming and making breakfast for the disciples and just how mundane that seemed. Like you talked about mundane. I wrote down miraculous of the mundane. That to me stuck with me. And how Jesus was just doing this lowly, simple thing for his friends. But it is miraculous because he died and he was no longer dead.
Right.
So then Greg moved into his third point, which was really about God uses ordinary people to help others. What stuck with you about this one?
Yeah, the illustration of his dad being the ring finder. I thought that was a really cool thing with the whole, like, he started off with, like, he's lost his ring so many times, and then the axe head gets lost in the water, and then his dad found a lady's wedding ring in the ocean, was it?
Yeah.
Which is
crazy.
Just absurd that would happen. So that was just a really cool tie-in. Then he mentioned people from God's word who were ordinary people who did extraordinary things. And then it made me think about some of the people in my life, some of which, like, I think of a guy named Dr. Peter Falk, who was one of my mentors in high school, who whenever I'd see him, he'd say, Peter, living in the word, Peter. And, but just an ordinary dude with his flaws and just like any one of us, but would routinely point me to God's word, which is extraordinary. Another mentor of mine was a guy named Mike LeClaire, and he was our neighbor. And when we were little, every time that commercial came out that was like, I want to be like Mike, he would, like, crank it up and, like, come outside and shoot hoops with us. And I'll never forget that. And for me, it's like, gosh, to live with that type of joy, that's an ordinary dude doing something extraordinary by simply being goofy. So those things stick out and help illustrate that point of what Greg talked about.
And I think, too, so many miracles of God, like, let's be real, he doesn't need us to do the miracle. I think of the feeding of the 5,000, like it was a miracle of provision, but it was also a miracle of participation. Like, he's including each and everybody in this. And in this case, he includes Elisha and this young student in it. And, like, he didn't need to do that. He could have just, if he could perform any miracle, he could have just taken the axe head out of the water and just placed it right back in the guy's hands. But instead, unlike Peter, he made it float. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to float, bud.
That'd be a
Maybe
miracle.
You can learn how to float. Anyway, it floated, and it was like, there it is, take it. And so sometimes, like, the miracle, I wonder how many miracles that we're leaving in the water or on the table, if you will, not because God isn't willing to do them, but because we're not willing to do our small part of, cool, the axe head is floating. 99.9% of this thing is done. I just got to do the 0.01% of lifting it out of the water, and then, like, it's done. And so to me, it's a reminder of our participation in God's miracles, that there are probably so many incredible, miraculous things that are hanging in the balance, only to have us put a little bit of action and do our part because God includes us in it, right? If he wanted to just do it himself, he could have. He didn't. He died and rose, and then he ascended into heaven and entrusted 12 pretty messed up guys to start this movement. And it continues forward with people like us and people like in our church, that we all have a part to play in it. We are those ordinary people. It's cool.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. And I think a couple things that came to mind there is, one, are our eyes up to see what's around us, to see what God is doing, to see the people God has placed around us, and to appreciate them and care. And then secondly, thinking of other extraordinary things done by ordinary people, I think of the volunteers in our city and in our churches, the people who care for the kids on a Sunday morning, who clean the coffee pots, who say hello and shake a hand of someone who's having a terrible, terrible day. Like every single one of those goes a long way within a faith community to to welcome people and to make them feel comfortable.
I have been shocked. Since I've been in guest experience on this campus, which is a year now, I don't even know, at the number of times someone will come to me and share a story of, hey, I was having a really bad day, and the greeter just shook my hand a little bit longer or gave me a smile and a hug. They didn't ask what was going on. They didn't ask if they could pray for something or offer some helpful advice, but they were just there to greet and welcome them when they walked into church. I mean, dozens of times people have come and said to me, hey, last week this happened, and I just thought somebody should know about it. What a simple thing that is. You know what I mean? To keep your eyes up and just welcome someone.
I'm going to get the longest handshakes ever this weekend. Too long.
Yeah, it had the opposite effect for me.
Just so
there's
much
like a
eye
certain
contact.
it's a fine line. Like it becomes creepy after a little point,
exactly.
Yeah. How long is too long?
I don't know. I'll start asking.
All right.
When I get the comments, I'll start
I think it
asking.
totally depends on where the conversation goes.
Yeah.
What if there's no conversation?
If there's no conversation and you're still
and a
hanging
nod.
on.
1000 to 1003, maybe.
3.
With no conversation.
I don't know. I think it depends if you bring in the other hand and really warm it with both hands. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like we're way overthinking this.
No, I think we're thinking about it perfectly.
I pray with my volunteers every Sunday morning. I'm like, Lord, direct our feet. Let us be whatever the people who are coming through the doors needs. If it's a smile, if it's a hug, if it's a handshake.
Well,
and I'm shocked at the number of responses that I get. Like it really is amazing to me.
Yeah, I told our campus folks about a couple of examples of people who have come to church. One of which it was his first time ever coming to our campus, and then he had a great experience. We talked about it a lot, and the next day he passed away. And it was horrific, and we never got to meet him again. And so, Lord, I pray that what happened that day, you have your hands all over it. Is a guy who hasn't been to church in over 30 years because he said that the church and God didn't love him anymore. And so he had finally worked up the courage to come to church. And so we never know what people are going through when they come through our doors. I also share the story of there's a couple who attended for about a year and a half who have now moved to Texas. And they said the reason that they attended is because someone learned their name on the first week and used it. And they said they never experienced that before. And it's something so simple but so powerful just to look up, learn a name, and then on the way out and say, see you, Greg. I'm so glad you're here. So we can do that.
I just had a guy who came back to church. He went here, I guess, when he was much younger, has a family member that goes here. And he came to fill out a new here card because he said, well, I haven't been here for like 10 or 15 years. So I thought maybe I should stop by. And I said, yes, I'd love to meet you. Started asking him about his story. And he said, well, I came like about 6 or 7 years ago. And I walked in and nobody said hi to me. And nobody offered to help me find a seat. And nobody shook my hand at the end of service. And he said, I just felt very shunned. And so I left. I was here that one time and I left and I didn't come back. And now here I have come back. And on the first day I came back, I walk in and a guy named Bill, who's one of our greeters, greeted him and had a whole conversation with him. And then the next week, where's Bill? Bill wasn't standing at the front door, but there was somebody other than Bill that was just as friendly. And he was like, I was shocked. Couldn't be 2 weeks in a row that people were friendly. And he said, it just week after week, I kept saying, oh, okay, I can come back. Maybe next week I'll see what I saw before. But he just talked about how the dynamic had changed, the warmth and the welcoming. Now, I don't know what was happened 6 or 7 years ago on the day that he came, because I know people have been friendly here for a long time. But for whatever reason, he didn't have that experience, and now he has.
Yeah.
And it speaks volumes.
Attaboy, Bill.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, what's your final thoughts, final takeaways from this message?
Yeah. One of the last questions that Pastor Greg asked was, what is your Elisha moment, your I will moments? And then he said, your impact will always be bigger than your effort. And I think about that. I mean, I think about that with the amazing people that I get to minister with, especially when they're going through a really hard time, because I'll sit with them and I don't have an answer for any of their grief, and I can't fix their problems, and I really want to. I wish I could. But the reality is, like, the best thing I can do is just be there and see them and pray for them and be sad for a little bit with them and lament. And I know when people have done that for me, it's made incredible. It's had incredible value. So your impact will always be bigger than your efforts. I'm just sitting there. But Lord, allow that to be helpful in some way. You do the work, God.
Yeah, my brain's been thinking this statement that if God would do this much for an axe head, like, think how much he'd do for someone like you, someone like me. If he'd go out of his way to find a lost axe head in water, like, how much more will God go to find his lost children? And in this process, even what we talked about, how much he'll use you and I and the people listening to help rescue his children. There's like no length. Like, he's already done that through Jesus, like at the cross and through the tomb. And so there's no length. There's no pit too deep that God cannot save and God cannot rescue. And that's a part of the mission where I hope all of us want to join in on that, because it's cool to see an axe head float. It's even more amazing to see lives changed and transformed through the waters of baptism. And that's what we're here to do. And so that thought of just, if God would do this for an axe head, I've had a few other, like, anyway, I'm not going to go where I've thought, like, what he'll do for an axe hole like me. But anyway, that's kind of where I was going. I was like, I don't know if I should say that. Maybe we'll edit that, but
I'll have to edit that for sure.
That's all right. We have all of like 6 listeners, right. So, no.
But seriously, if he'd go that length, like, there's nothing off the table for what God wouldn't do to reach his kids. That's cool. That's good. All right. Do you want to tag us out this time?
Yeah,
Peter?
I do.
This has become a little thing for you.
In honor of your favorite summer thing of going to the movies.
Yeah.
I've got the movie trailer.
All right.
For
this sermon series? For what? For the summer?
For the podcast.
Okay. Yeah. I'm ready. I'm locked in.
Yeah. That's exactly where it starts. In a world where Sunday happens. Yeah, so I've got 3 points that are going to make this abundantly clear. My wife Lori's the best. You hear a message. And so I found my ring, and then I lost my ring. And you get a lot from it. And then I got a tattoo of my ring. My dad said, don't get a tattoo. Sometimes it gets more serious. God does this, and God does that. And then you forget about it because you're a human. You've got a lot going on. But then you found this podcast. And it went beyond Sunday.